Hi, this is Cecilia from Tarot by Cecilia, and this is your weekly tarot guidance for the week of September the 12th through the 18th of 2016. What a week we have coming up here. I think this is one of the ones we've really been waiting for. Let's see. Okay. 12th through the 18th. We talked about way back, I think on June the 17th, circling the calendar for 3 months from then, which would bring us to this week, namely September 17th. I don't know what that means, okay? But on the 16th, we have a full moon in Pisces, which is a penumbral lunar eclipse. There will be no more eclipses this year, thank goodness, because there has been enough to deal with in the year of 2016. But maybe finally we're all going to start feeling as though we're getting somewhere. So let's see what that's about. Because, there is this with the issues. What's hanging over your head? What do you need to deal with? Can you deal with it? What are you praying for? First of all, that's kind of the thing. It's like praying to be, I want to say to be led in the right direction at this point, because it's been kind of like, what am I supposed to do? I think we talked about it last week in the weekly, that trying to decide what is your next move, okay? Some things you know for a fact that they'll happen. Other things, you're like, it depends upon what you decide. So it really is kind of a like, all right, what am I supposed to do now? Now, that seems to be how you're feeling at the beginning of the week. I honestly think by the end, you've pretty much been figuring it out. So it's going to be an interesting week for the books. One of those things where if you're someone who journals everything, you probably have a great book in the making, because it is amazing, how the universe can guide you and have you following along. And part of this change that you're working on or trying to figure out what to do, it either is around finances or business or home life, okay? Not so much a relationship thing for most of you, but more so around that getting your life together kind of feeling. All right. Now, looking toward the future, but not as you have looked at it before. That's a little bit different, right? Yeah. See, finally you're changing how you think about things and how you want to approach things. I think that's why this week you're finally starting to figure some things out, whether it's by your own doing or things are happening. There is movement, and I think it is with the big issue. What is the big issue? There's something going on. Maybe it's not the total resolution, but maybe you finally hear something, and you're sitting there and you're thinking, if I could eliminate this now, boy, would that help balance things out. So, as always, it feels as though there are rules and regulations that sort of, I want to say, stand in the way. And when I say that, I mean it in the sense of, whether you're doing something that has to go through the courts or the government or anything else, there's some sort of procedure that needs to be followed to do it properly. You can't just say, okay, finally I'm done with this. Do you know what I'm saying? In other words, you got to go through all the bureaucratic red tape to do it the right way. Is it a loss? Oh yeah. But it's a loss that has you feeling reborn and kind of like, I almost want to say back on top of your game, that type of thing. There is a huge shift in your focus, and there is a huge shift in how you focus. Whereas before, when you would have focused on this thing, which is now lost to you, or will be lost to you maybe this week, or in the very near future, you viewed it as though you couldn't bear it. Now I think it's like almost glad about it. All right, okay, I'm done with that. I am so ready to move forward from this. Okay, so finally there is that news that something's happening, and it feels very important. Now, I want to go out on a limb here with you. Feel like a little kid in a candy store, like at a smorgasbord of happiness. It's not so much that this is a happy time as it is that now you feel as though you can make choices for happiness, but you still have that unknown. Like, okay, when I'm no longer, like, this is no longer a part of my life, what will my life be like? It'll probably be a whole lot better. There is patience attached to this, though, whatever you have happening. And I don't know how best to explain it except for that. Let's say you do finally figure out how to eliminate something that has been hanging over your head this week, right? It's pretty much a done deal. But there's more to do afterwards. I think the patience is what comes with that. I think a lot of people have looked at the dates that I've targeted and the time frames that I've targeted and thought they'd just be sitting pretty with nothing else to think about when they arrived at that time. So now we've been looking at October the 8th. I think it's more like, patience, because when you get there, you have, like you have this whole new life without that other thing. All right, now how do I want to act and what do I want to do? What's my new routine going to be? Because it's all totally unknown. So how are you going to proceed from there? So I don't think that part's a done deal. You really don't have any idea. You may have hopes and dreams and wishes, and some of them may even come true. But the question is, what will you really be doing? What is it that the universe has intended for you to do? So this patience is kind of like patience for feeling totally in control. You are regaining control. It's just that you don't quite know yet exactly where you're headed. You do have a vision for your change and a more, I want to say, more balanced emotion toward what will make you happy. Now, for many of you, a lot of this doesn't just center around happiness. It centers around home life and, in some respects, changes around finances, whether that's your actual finances or your job. And I know many of you out there are waiting to sell something, buy something, sign something. This is a good week for it coming up. If it doesn't happen this week that you actually get to sign, for all of you, you may find it being next week, because I'm seeing it kind of happening by the equinox. And then there's the celebration. So, but this week may finally be bringing you the news that you need to get everything going, like finally getting it going. Because the longer it takes, you feel as though you're being cheated out of that, I want to use the word fruition. All of the things, all of the abundance that you want in your life. You do have a wish coming true this week. And, you're just so raring to go. There is no other way to put it. It's like, it's been a challenge. So much has been a challenge. And you just desire freedom from this whole issue. I really do believe that you're going to get it. So many of you are going to finally break out, break free, move on. It's like the time has come. So now, I know this is a weekly, and I know we're talking about, wishes coming true and things finally moving. There's a lot of movement in this week, okay? But remember, there's an eclipse here. And this eclipse wants to help you complete something and walk away from something that has really been done for quite some time. And we've been talking about how it's been done since last year when there was an eclipse in Pisces, okay? And you really kind of like it drove it home at that time when it fell at that last degree. But the sense that I'm getting here is, like I said, even though this is a weekly, so here you are. It's September, October, November. I feel like once you have this all going on, and you've found some form of resolution for this issue, that it kind of then takes you to, I want to say, what is Thanksgiving in the U.S., which is around the third week in November. And I've been noticing this, and I'm like, there's been some key time frames, that being one of them, and also what we call Columbus Day here, which is October the 10th, and that's Thanksgiving in Canada. So those two different time frames are like little movement indicators to me that things are happening. But I think that there is a much more positive feel by the time you've arrived at that Thanksgiving timeline, that third week in November. I don't know why, but it's just that, like, whatever has happened, this week, and whatever the eclipse is taking away from your life, then you're starting to get into gear to work on the next part. And like I said, I don't think you know right away, so you're kind of finding your way. I think it's much more positive, and you're actually working on, coming up with a plan. So this takes you a few weeks to get things going. Like, what is the next phase? Okay, you arrive there, and then you're sort of standing there looking, going, okay, my future is right in front of me. But then you kind of hit, I want to say, like a point where when you get to October, you might just be going, I have to look around. I have to think about this. What is it I want to do? Because I think now, and this is important, I've spoken about this before, it's all about that learning to choose differently. So let's say your divorce finally came through, all right? And maybe you've had plenty of time to think about the error of your ways and how you just kept repeating and repeating and repeating with all the relationships that you've ever had in your life, and kept resulting in the same thing. So now you're thinking, okay, I want to do this differently. And maybe I should back up and look it over a little bit before jumping in again so soon. Now that's just one example, but there's so many different things, so many different issues that people have going on. And what this is asking you, and I've mentioned it before, is that once you resolve this thing from the past, don't dive headlong into the future. Take your time. Enjoy the ride. Enjoy the journey. And just proceed, not cautiously, but in a carefree manner where you take the time to look around and enjoy the scenery. The best way I can describe it is that when I was raised, we would go for vacations every year, all over, throughout the year. And we always drove, okay? I don't think flying was as predominant then, but I learned to enjoy that because as I grew older, and I did finally go on a plane, I realized that I went from A to Z, and I missed everything from B to Y. Okay, so that's kind of like what this is like. There's so much along the way. Don't be in such a hurry to arrive at a particular destination without exploring everything that's on the way. To know, to see, to learn. There's so much that you may be missing out on. So what is this full moon this week bringing? Well, I think some very drastic change that allows you to feel as though you're back standing on your own 2 feet, like your own person, without all of that stuff, without all of the struggles, because it's been a struggle to close this door. Can it be that you finally know that that door is going to close? You at least know something. If you don't close it this week, you know something. Someone has said to you, sent you a letter or whatever, an email, a piece of mail, snail mail, that says your change is arriving. It is coming. So that's a positive thing. So definitely you can see here that change is on the way. And I really, really like that. And this full moon is most definitely a huge part of it. And I really think I've said enough. It's just, it has a very powerful feeling about it. But that sense of take your time. No need to rush from this point because it's not quite time to move forward yet. I feel like that, do it in little bits. Let Mercury go direct, which is not until we start, talking again next week, that type of thing. So whatever you're working on this week, whatever news you get, it's going to help you further yourself in your direction. But don't be like running out trying to get it all done at one time. Okay, and I think I'm going to stop there, my friends, because there's a hurricane brewing. So I want to thank you all for listening, and I'll see you here again next week. Take care.